Hello everyone, Pulse here and welcome to another episode of Forging Fantasy EverQuest Next. Now today we're going to talk a little bit about what the Roundtable is, how and why it's important, and then I'm going to go over some of the actual questions that SOE have already put out to us on their Roundtable, and I'm just going to go over them and throw my thoughts and opinions on each and every one that I go through. And yeah, that'll do it for the video, I think. So let's quickly go over the Roundtable, shall we? So what is Roundtable? Well, the Roundtable is SOE's attempt to engage players in the development of both EverQuest Next, the landmark version, and the MMO version. And they're doing this by asking the community different questions on topics big and small. So you'll see some that are silly. For example, there's some that are about beards, and then there's some on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, which are asking very hot topics when it comes to MMOs, such as social capabilities between accounts, or is it all character based and stuff like that. And all in all, I'm a huge fan of this development style, and I really like it when the developers at least try to show everyone that they're wanting the player input. This way the players that are following the game can really feel like their input matters. And I also like that it's fairly transparent. I really hate this idea of developers claiming they love the feedback and then they don't ever seem to show any answers or any progress or anything really about how they're taking that into consideration and changing stuff. I really like the more transparent style. If you're gonna say that you want the fan feedback, actually show us that. So I'm a huge fan of this roundtable idea that SOE has going for it. But most importantly, I love the fact that, at least the way it seems, the way that they frequently ask questions, and the way that they've just put out their information, it looks like they're actually legitimately trying to take our input into the development process, and we could potentially shape the experiences that we'll have in EverQuest Next and in Landmark. So this gets a big thumbs up from me. The Roundtable is fairly nice. I like the idea of it, and I wish more development houses would utilize something like the Roundtable. So let's get into the questions then, shall we? What kind of questions are they asking on the Roundtable? And you know what? I think I'm going to actually start doing this for any upcoming Forging Fantasy episodes, where I kind of take the information that I have on a certain topic, and then I'll kind of end it, or maybe fill the second half, maybe depending, with some discussion on the most recent Roundtable questions and give my thoughts and opinions on that. So yeah, let's get into that. But before I begin, let me just say that you guys may hear some clicking because I'm actually going to be doing the questions in real time. So you'll get my first reactions, my first opinions on the matter. Yeah, so let's just jump into the actual questions. Let me see here. Which one would I first like to tackle? Let's start with a silly one, as I mentioned earlier. Should female dwarves have beards or not? It seems to be that for the most part everyone has picked the same choice I did. It should be an optional choice. I don't think we're going to see a lot of bearded ladies, but you never know. And the idea that you could potentially do that, I mean, that's something that I believe Tolkien did, had bearded ladies, a dwarf anyway. So why not? I don't see any problem with that. That's just a silly one. Let's start off with a silly one. Then let's go on to a different one. Let's go to this one. I liked this question a lot. How complex should the landmark design tools be? Now, they had a bunch of answers. I should have said it's a multiple choice kind of thing that they have going, and they've got everything from simpler than Minecraft, about the same as Minecraft, no preference, more complex, or complexity is not an issue, I want the power. I picked that option mainly because I truly feel like they shouldn't dumb down the building tools. They should make it accessible, but make it so that the really skilled can give us some astounding things. Now, obviously, Minecraft has this very same thing as well. It's so simple, but the really skilled can go elsewhere. If they keep the simpler tools so that it's easy to build stuff that's cool, like in Minecraft, but then they add on a lot more of the complex tools, especially with the way that they have their voxel generation working, and the way you can actually smooth stuff around, give us a lot of more complex tools so the really advanced player can give us just truly amazing stuff. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for Landmark, because it looks like the tools that they have in place already are just really substantial and kind of impressive. Let's go on to another one here. Let's do this one. How do you feel about modern concepts such as guns and ninjas in EverQuest Next? Now, one thing before I go on, are ninjas really a modern day concept? Because I didn't think they were. But anyway, there are options here where, let's see, I don't have a strong opinion. I really like it when fantasy games can find a way to include a version of modern concepts in an unique way, and I'd like to see a lot of this. It depends on what it is. I think it needs to be discussed on a case-by-case basis. Norrath should be able to include modern concepts like guns or ninjas, assuming they fit the visual style and appropriate lore, and modern concepts like guns and ninjas have no place in fantasy environment like Norrath. Now, most of the people picked that last one, that they just don't want the guns and ninjas in a fantasy environment like Norrath. Now, I do think that ninjas was a poor term, because the idea of a ninja, to me anyway, is just you're a stealthy assassin. And I actually think if they had just said guns and stealthy assassin in EverQuest Next, I'm pretty sure people would be like, yeah, I want to be a stealthy badass assassin. Bring on the Assassin's Creed in my EverQuest Next. That would be cool. I actually picked the second to last, that Norrath should be able to include modern concepts such as guns or ninjas, assuming they fit the visual style and have appropriate lore. Now, I kind of was on back and forth about this, because I don't really care either way, but I'm a fan of guns done in a fantasy setting if they make it fit kind of like in a semi-steampunk way, or they make it so that it doesn't seem like it just would be a super overpowered weapon. Like today, you just can't win gun versus sword or dagger or what have you every time. It's no question. That's just how it works. But if you can make it so that the guns seem like more legitimate weapons for the time, like they make it fit into the technology, I'm actually totally okay with that. And so that's kind of why I voted that one. I feel like if they can make it fit the lore and they make the weaponry seem fitting to the area, so that it's not something ridiculous, like you're not going to have an AK-47 in Norrath, obviously. But if they do something that kind of fits with the technology of the world, that would be cool. So let's go on to another one here. Let me see. For the most part, the other ones I want to talk about are all fairly hot topic kind of questions. So I'll just go to the top one here. Contested content, yay or nay? Now, this one is going to be, I feel like, one of the most split. And even though for the most part, the most given answer was there should be a good mix of both contested and non-contested content, I can definitely see why there would be a split here, because the game thus far, we don't know what kind of content it's going to have in terms of PvE and PvP, and is it going to have the open world PvP stuff versus the like closed off and segregated. If it's together, like if they intend to make the game from the ground up as a game where they take full advantage of the building aspects and make it a lot more, I suppose it would just have to be PvP oriented. They could obviously dumb it down and provide PvE content, but if they made it so that, like I kind of mentioned this in the other videos, where I really have this vision where they can utilize the buildings to facilitate to really awesome PvP encounters, so much so that it could really grab people that don't really like that kind of content. I think if they build the game around that style of content, I do think that contested stuff should be very well utilized. I think that contested content done in a way where there's actual bonuses and there's two sides to what's going on with the contested area. Is it contested because another player has it or a group of people have it? Is that what they mean, or do they mean contested as in it's just blocked off for whatever reason? Now I hope that they don't go the route of like WoW's what is those areas? The stupid snow mountain area that was in Wrath of the Lich King, where you had to fight to get a raid boss. I think that's really stupid, so hopefully they don't do that. But for this question, I put there should be a good mix of both contested and non-contested content, mainly because we don't know exactly kind of which way they're leaning on the content front, what kind of game we're going to have, because to me I feel like this is one of those that could really go either way on what kind of fan base they really garner to. So I feel like going to a mix of both would be cool, but I do think that they should have contested content, and I feel like there's a lot of people who don't want the contested content anywhere. I think they should have it a little bit at least, even if it's only in very specific areas. But that's what I put down. A mix of both should be utilized in this, because it looks like it could work really, really well with the building and all that kind of stuff that's going into the game. So the next question here, what do we have? Should friends lists be account based or character based? Now this is an interesting one, because a lot of people feel like you shouldn't have to have the account based stuff. There's a lot of people that have done the MMO stuff for a long time, and they're just like, whatever, I don't want to have an account, I don't want to have to talk to them cross faction. If they're not on my faction anyway, I don't want to talk to them and stuff like that. My opinion though is that it should be, not because I disagree with that. I actually do think the whole faction thing and being able to communicate cross faction because of the account based stuff actually can ruin some other versions of content, or other forms of content I should say. But the whole thing is it's better than the faults that it can create. So I voted I want the option to add friends by account. With approval, I'd like to see all their characters rather, but denial would show only the friended character. So that way you could have in my opinion, kind of the perfect balance, is about as perfect as you can get. So you can still communicate to somebody that has an alt or something on an opposing side or whatever. And we don't really know the faction stuff as far as I know. But you'll be able to see other players playing other stuff in other realms or whatever, all of that kind of junk. But you can keep it specific enough so you don't have people snooping around and communicating around accounts, and just it can get weird. For example, if somebody gives you their account and then they just want to play privately and they know that you're a talkative person, and it comes down to, well, do I put them on block or do I put them on invisible, and if they find me then it's a bunch of drama. This way they can just say, you know what, I'll be friends with you, but I want to keep it to this character, just because every now and then I like my private time or what have you, and that way it doesn't get too overbearing when you have somebody that you like to play with, but sometimes they just can't catch a hint. So I feel like that's a good answer to go with there. So I say yes, account based, but put some limitations so that you can have some rulings onto who and when you want to play with and who you want to communicate with. So let me see, what is the next one? I'll do this one and then I'll come back to that other one here. Let me see. To what degree should players be able to change the appearance of armor? Now, it comes down to as much as possible, some but not so much that I can't tell what they're wearing, make it an option and let people decide on their own. I'm not sure, was 0.8%. I don't know who answered that one. I put some but not so much that I can't tell what they're wearing. This is kind of back and forth to me, because I know there's a lot of people that like if there's class specific armors in a game, for instance. This is a good example is Guild Wars 2, and myself and my girlfriend and the people we play with, they very much like to wear some of the other armors simply for the role play. Like they want to wear light armor for like dress clothes or what have you, and then they won't be able to wear the armor because their class doesn't fit, and it can make it very difficult, and it comes down to like they have to re-roll alts and stuff. So I do think that they should have options to wear that kind of role play centered like clothing and customization. I do think they need to put that in the game, but in terms of like changing the armor itself, what you wear in combat, I think that it needs to stick to like what you're actually wearing. So if you're wearing plate, you can't go too far away from plate, and if you're wearing leather, you can't go too far away from leather. You can't be like a rogue-ish kind of character running around assassinating people, being very silent, but then to all of us we see a like the paladin, bulky, huge dude in armor coming out of his wazoo. I think there does need to be limitations, but in addition, I do think they need to also facilitate for the kind of role play that's going to happen for sure in this game. So I do think they need to put that in place. Now let me see, what do we have left? I'm trying to see if I've missed any. Let me see. I don't think so. So, let's go to this one. This is an interesting one as well, and I think it's the one that's most closely voted for, like in terms of like the contesting amounts of votes. It's very close in terms of what people want. So, this question is, should all races have access to play all classes? The top voted one here is, I'd like to see certain races restricted to certain classes based on lore. The next runner-up one is, I want to play any class with any race I choose, even if it means a penalty to some combinations. The next one after that is, I prefer to play just one character, so I won't be able to access all classes if I want. It adds interest and replayability if some races can't play some classes, and I don't have a strong preference either way is the last one. They have those kinds of answers on all these, but it seems silly. Like, if that's what you're going to answer, how about you just think about it a couple more minutes and then come back and tell us your legit answer. But the top two, obviously, are certain classes should be restricted based on lore. And then the other one is the complete opposite, is I want to play whatever I want to play with whatever race I want to be. I believe the last time I looked at this, I was very torn between both of these, because I can totally feel the need for like the roleplay and the lore centric community wanting to go, well, this just doesn't make sense. Don't allow that person to play that class with that race. And then there's the other side that's like, we'll let you play with whatever you want. Now, at the moment, I would say let people play whatever race with whatever class, and if, as they even mentioned here, some penalties, like if it doesn't make sense in lore, make a lore like penalty, like what happens there. The thing is, EverQuest Next has a very different class style going about it. It's something I'm actually going to cover probably in another video or two from now, where you can just pick and choose out of a huge pool of different classes that you gain while exploring and doing other stuff. So your class isn't very concrete. It kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy XIV meets Elder Scrolls, which is not a bad thing at all. Those two MMOs coming out together, and it feels like EverQuest Next is kind of picking from both of those fruits at the moment and getting a little bit of both. So at the moment, I would say let every class and every race be a possible combination. But if they have certain classes out in the world that they just do not make any sense, and there's an alternative class that's close enough in play style that it does make sense to in the lore in some way or some fashion, I do think they should put a restriction, actually, because that way you can get the best of both worlds. If there's alternative classes that are close enough, then they can play that class, and they can be the race, and everything will be hunky-dory for the lore guys. And then if it is close enough, and they're willing to play it, and you get the same play style for the most part, then those people should be happy as well. I think that's a fair compromise if they have enough class combinations going on that you can build the character you want, even if you can't play every single class in the game. But time will tell. We'll have to see what their classes actually are. We just know that there's a whole bunch of them. So yeah, I think that's everything. Let me double check one last time that is all of the questions on the roundtable currently. I believe so. Yeah, that should do it for all the questions currently on the roundtable. Now obviously that was a whole bunch, and in future videos I probably won't have nearly as many unless I take just as long to get around to making another Forging Fantasy EverQuest Next video, obviously. So they'll probably have a couple less, and I'll probably just dive into them a little bit more detailed. But yeah, that'll do it for me this episode, guys. Hopefully you all found it fairly enjoyable and somewhat informative. And as always, I'd love to know what you guys think about the subject matter discussed. Specifically, these questions and answers that SOE is asking of us. What kind of answers would you have given to them? That way, your input's in there as well. And if you haven't, I would suggest going over there, taking a look at the roundtable page, and putting your input in, because every vote counts. So let me know down below what you guys prefer in terms of those questions. Specifically, do dwarf women need beards? Because that's the most important one, right? But yeah, as I exit here, guys, I have to bother you. Have to bother you for a like, thumbs up, a subscribe and a comment down below on anything EverQuest Next or gaming related. And make sure to stick to Nova Pulse Gaming for everything EverQuest Next, everything MMO, everything gaming in general, guys. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one.